You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Jeff Hatten. Jeff is doing some interesting stuff on LinkedIn, and I wanted to kind of quiz him about that. It's a little bit different to some of the stuff that we're seeing. So, Jeff, welcome.
Great to be here. Great to connect with you and do this, Fred. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it because this episode is going to be about humor in sales, because as your LinkedIn profile says, the very first bit is, I think humor is funny, which kind of made me smile anyway. But then that's what you're all about. You're using humor a hell of a lot, and you're promoting its use in particular. So I wanted to kind of just dig down into that a little bit and see what we can learn. So if we kick off, what do we mean by humor? I mean, is it like sort of being a comedian? Is it knock jokes? Is it slapstick, Benny Hill stuff? It's like, what are we defining humor as here?
Yeah, believe it or not, I know maybe 3 jokes that I could tell. Maybe, like if you had to hard press me, I'm not a joke guy, but I've kind of discovered this joy that I get, and I believe it brings others joy as well by talking about things that are relevant in our world and in sales, in the LinkedIn universe, and figuring out ways to make those funny, essentially. And I've always thought I was a funny guy. Like, I'd be at a party and I tend to make people laugh, but I never really invested in it, like on the business side. As a matter of fact, I probably shied away from it. Like I was a little bit more buttoned up, a little bit more corporate, and a little bit more afraid to show kind of my personality and myself. And once I finally got past myself and started putting stuff out there that entertained people, that caught people's attention because it's different from most of the other stuff that they see on LinkedIn or they get in an email template that looks the same as everything else. Like I said, it's been freeing to go through that and to discover that.
You've used some really interesting words there. You can see me scribbling stuff down. I've written 4 words down. First one was joy.
Yeah.
That's a lovely word. It's great. And when you said it, I thought, you know what, LinkedIn's a bit of a joyless place at the moment. And getting more so. Or is that me? Am I just being grumpy? Is it just it's cold, it's wet, it's dark time of year, and
I think it has a reputation for being a joyless place. But I think if you find the right corners, I think you can get a lot out of it, both in terms of entertainment value, like what I focus on, as well as educational value, which can be delivered in a way that's not, like, please staple my eyelids shut because this is just horrible. I can't watch anymore.
Yeah. Because that's the second word I wrote, which was relevant.
Yeah.
So you use joy and relevant together. So we can have a bit of fun, but we're not just messing about. There's a relevance to this, which is helping people to understand the fact that we can use, but in your case, the fact we can use humor.
Yeah.
So that's quite an important word.
It's the word. It's the one that I didn't get it right away. Like, well, I'll take you back a little ways to like when I started putting content on LinkedIn.
Yeah, please.
Like I've been on LinkedIn, since nearly the beginning, in some form or fashion, mostly using it as a contact database. Oh, the VP of sales at this company is this guy, I'll guess his email and, try and get him to take a meeting. Like that was kind of my initial use of LinkedIn. And then that evolved into getting brave enough to start posting some stuff And mostly that stuff was like the stuff that we find just boring as hell right now. Hey, check out, we got a new website. We're really proud of it. Like, or
Excited.
yeah, we're we have a we've got I actually worked for a sales training company for a dozen years. So promoting that, like, oh, if you need to get better at demoing software, you got to check out Demo to Win. It's a great course. That kind of
Oh, we
stuff
can be a
that's,
barrel of laughs in sales training.
oh yeah. It's like, but it's just like, why did this only get one like from my coworker? Like, I don't get it.
You got 10 co-workers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started to discover there are some creators out there that are pretty entertaining and do some funny stuff, and it's related to sales, so it's kind of in my lane. So a guy by the name of Tom Boston, who is just a gem, puts out some amazing stuff. I'd watch it and just be like, oh God, this is so funny. He's so good at this. And it's so engaging. Like, it just pulls me in. And it just so happened, at the time that he was doing this, he was working for a company called Sales Loft. And all of a sudden I'm learning a lot more about Sales Loft. Like, I've started to create this, you know, brand affinity for Sales Loft in my mind just because I love the stuff that Tom Boston was putting out, which was fun. Another Brit, Will Aitken, is another
Yeah.
guy that just puts out some funny stuff. He's a little bit more snarky in some of the stuff that he does, but it, all the same, it was like, man, this is really effective. And it's like, and again, it like, I kind of found myself like, he went and worked for this company called Lavender. And I found myself like watching these videos and going, I got to learn more about lavender. Like I developed this, you know, I'll call it a brand affinity. Like, just I became aware of the brand because of the stuff that these guys were putting out. And I kind of secretly started to come out of my shell a little bit and get start getting a little bit more brave, like thinking about, hey, could I do this myself? The first video that I put out there that really like was intentionally supposed to be funny.
Intentionally.
Yeah, it was it was this idea that I had because I had it in my head that these guys are super funny. They're awesome, but they're British, and everybody thinks the Brits are super funny, like they've got a leg up. And so I like just kind of riffing on that idea, I came up with this video for like somebody who's interviewing two people. One's named Jeff, spelled like my name, Jeff. The other is Jeff with a G, Eoffe. He's a Brit. And he's interviewing him, and the interviewer, like American Jeff, says something, and the interviewer is just stone faced, like it's not that funny. And then British Jeff says something, and it's just hilarious no matter what he says. And like in my mind, that was really funny because like this was kind of like playing in my own like little headspace that I had. And it was funny. I mean, it was, looking back on it, it was funny. But the one thing that it missed, and I didn't discover this for a couple few months later, was it being, going back to that word, relatable. Like, maybe some people could relate to that, but that was totally my own headspace. That was the genesis of that video. Whereas, so people may have found it funny, but people may also find Gallagher, the watermelon fruit smashing guy, like, that's funny. He smashes watermelons, but it's not
Mm.
relatable to anything really. And so I started to, once it really started to click that I needed to make it about something that was relatable in the sense that, who is your audience, Jeff? And I my audience that I wanted to be my audience and that I also discovered was my audience were people that are in the sales community, as well as people that are in the LinkedIn content creation space. So kind of like marrying those two together. And once I started really focusing in on things that were relatable to sellers or to LinkedIn content creators, and then making something funny about that, that's when I really felt like I'd started to figure stuff out.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. That's the second week running. Tom's got a call out on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, he's a
No, no,
jammer
not surprised at all. I mean, it was his co-worker, and to be fair, and Will, as I spoke to Will, in fact, I spoke to Will when he was at Proposify or someone like that, and then he went to
Okay.
Vidyard because of the quality of the stuff that he was doing, and they have made careers out of this
For
because
sure.
they've got it, and that it's that relatability, and it's like, yeah, it's funny, but it's because they've pinpointed these things. You go, yes, that. It's just the way you
Yeah.
said it, because it's almost a bit painful sometimes, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
they're
for
poking
sure.
on a pain. John Selig talks about this as well. Selig talks about
Hmm.
this. That kind of, you find that thing that people are going to recognize, and then you can manufacture the thing out of it.
Totally. That's it.
And the other thing you said there is about getting past yourself. So having the confidence to do that. It wasn't a natural thing that you just go, yeah, I can just drop this stuff. You've learned and you push through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For my cap is covering up my blonde hair, but I'm not Gen Z in case you hadn't guessed. So I didn't grow up with social media.
Yeah.
So for those of us that haven't grown up with social media, it's more challenging to like push through that barrier to start, saying, oh, I'm going to put myself out there. And it's not, especially when you make it personal and you actually put yourself on the line, which you are doing with humor, then, that's a bigger step to take.
I think, well, I know for Gen Z it's hard as well because, like,
Of
the
course.
podcast
Yeah.
last week, I had Nia Woodhouse on, who we were literally talking about, like, getting the confidence to do it. She's
Yeah.
that generation. So when she first started, it was hard. It wasn't very good, but she's got better and better and better and better. Tom's her coach, by the way. That's probably why she's got better.
Yeah. I love
Okay, so just have a little look then. So yeah, okay, so we're doing it. We're relevant. We're trying to be relatable. And I guess that's why it works because people recognize themselves in it. Is that the case, or is that
Yeah, they
too
recognize
simple?
themselves or something that's just been bugging them, gnawing at them. For example, I'll give you an example of a post that I had that really popped off that I didn't put a lot of thought into. I mean, it literally was like a last minute, like, oh, this could be kind of funny. And I'm like, hey, Melody, my wife, can you do me a favor and film me doing this? I think it'll work. And it really worked. So those of us that are on LinkedIn and you see a post that you have engaged with, and maybe it's somebody you know or respect or whatever, and you want to react to it in some form or fashion. You could give it a like, but then you look and like, oh, but a bunch of people loved this, so maybe I should change my thumbs up to a heart, and I go in and change that, and like, oh no, but if it's actually kind of funny, maybe I should put the humor emoji and I change that. And like I found myself doing this sometimes, like questioning what reaction to put on a post, which is just silly. I mean, it's, obviously there's not that much thought that should go into it. But the fact that I created this little skit of me going through and changing, what emoji I was going to put, and then I end up like triple guessing myself and going back and like, oh no, it's just a like. So it ended up being a 20-second video or something, but it popped off because it's resonant. Like
It's true.
people like they're like, I've done that
I've done
myself.
that. Does it?
Yeah,
No, no, it's not quite. No, but oh, no, that's not the same as the one I gave the
yeah,
other day. That's not fair. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So it's discovering those things, like trying to get inside of people's heads, like to think about the things that they're thinking or the experiences that they've had, and the more relatable it is, and obviously, if there's a funny element to it, the more effective it is.
It- okay, so we're using techniques, and we could go right into comedy technique, comedic or comedy. Make a choice, right? Comedy techniques as to sort of how this all works. But we're basically trying to trigger emotions, nice emotions, joy, you know. So when? can we use this? Because we could just do it for the sake of it, and then you become an entertainer, and that's like kind of being the class idiot, isn't it? Where
Right.
you entertain everybody, and then they get down to work, they all do really well, and you're like, well, actually, I didn't really achieve anything apart from just entertaining people, and now I'm kind of left as a bit of a loser.
Yeah.
We want to kind of use this in a way which we can move ourselves forward.
Yeah.
So where can we use this? How as salespeople, it's obviously Sales Day podcast, can we bring this in to help us with our job?
Sure. Well, so from a seller's perspective, obviously you've got your traditional channels that you're engaging with prospects in that you can use humor. You know, you're in front of them for a demo, as an example, showing some personality, having some even pre-planned humor, I think can be effective. What I've obviously your communications that you have with them, you know, just being light and being human at the same time maintaining professionalism, I believe I believe is the way to go if it suits your personality. If it doesn't, then don't force it, would be my opinion. I think if you try and do that, then it gets awkward and it'll feel awkward to others as well. But where I've really started to lean into, and I've been in sales my entire career, sold software, worked for a sales training company, selling sales training. And I believe that there's this giant shift that's taking place in the whole go to market ecosystem right now. And I believe that it has a lot to do or has everything to do with content and that creating content as a seller, as a selling team is an extremely effective way to like I'll I'll use case in point like when we hopped on this call today. You're like I feel like I've known you for a long time because
Yeah,
you've seen me
yeah,
on
yeah,
video a lot. And I get that all the time. Like for people that you know, it's the first my first time speaking to them that have seen my video content, it's like, oh wow, you know, I feel like I know you already. And I've been there and have experienced that as well. And if we as sellers can develop a persona and a personality and a level of trust before we even communicate or have a conversation with somebody, I think that first conversation is going to go significantly better than the seller who sells a competing solution, which in the prospect's eyes looks pretty much exactly the same as the other solution. You know, they view it as a commodity, even if we as the company and the selling team, you know, we want to stress the differences that we have from the feature and function capability. The prospect's reality, you know, for most product segments out there is that these look pretty similar, you know.
yeah.
So that's where there's this huge opportunity for sellers today to use content as a way to like kind of like set the entire stage before they even have conversations with people.
Y- Yeah, I tend to talk now to people about reputation enhancement.
Okay,
And
I love
because
that.
I do quite a lot in the engineering manufacturing world, and I think if you say personal brand, people don't like it. They almost like recoil from it. Because what you're saying there is it's like, I feel like I know you, and it looks like you know what you're on about. Now, if you're going into a conversation on the front foot like that, it's cold conversation actually, but in the person's mind, that's what they're thinking because you've come across personable and you've shared some things which has made them think, well, yeah, this guy does know.
Yeah,
It can only benefit you. And I think that trust, credibility, reputation enhancement, it's different to the lead gen stuff, isn't it? Which so many people on LinkedIn talk about. It's like, yeah, produce this and then do this, and then you're getting a 5x your conversations per week, and which I think in B2B is probably bollocks. But I do know that when you're going in and because whatever you're doing has worked, and it's suddenly, well, this conversation's just took off. But they're quoting stuff back that I've said.
yeah,
Yeah. That's where the action's at, really, isn't it? Increasingly so. I'm with you on that one.
yeah. And I like your term reputation, you know, relating it to your reputation because that's what it is. You're building trust, you're building credibility, and you're becoming known before you even engage. And
but
that's super powerful.
but you have to do it, don't you? It's you can't because I've talked to people about this. They say, "Oh, yeah, I share the company stuff." It's like, no, that won't work. That's not the same thing. You could
Correct.
read the company stuff, and even if you're not going down the full humor route and you're just going to regurgitate it and maybe go more educational, more direct, it's still coming from you. You know,
Yeah.
you're the person that I've heard that from, and now you're going up in my estimation. I put that
Yeah.
spin of, fun on it as well. But actually, yeah, I can connect with you as a human.
Well, I think the sellers that, because I mean, the reality is there's a very small segment of sellers that are out there creating good content on a regular basis. So there's a huge opportunity, I believe, for those that take advantage of it. If and the reality is that if 100% of the sellers did that, then it'd be a lot harder to stand out. But most people don't do that. Like I must have received, I'll give you an example, like not in the content space. I must have received 10 gazillion, if that's a number,
It sounds like one to
like
me. Yeah.
emails or in-mails this last year from people soliciting me over, you know, a gazillion things. I received one personalized video via email, one from an SDR, and it wasn't a fit. Like I didn't need it, but of course I took the time to reply. I actually built a relationship with her. Like I'm rooting for her. I'm like everybody, it's easy to think, oh, everybody's creating personalized videos. I hear so much about it on LinkedIn, but in reality, probably there's only a small slice of people that are actually doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, the same. I'm thinking over the last couple of years, probably one hand.
Yeah,
People who sent a personal video, and I think there's another thing comes into play there. So I know we're talking slightly different sort of content. It's not like the public out-facing stuff. It's
yeah,
private. But either way, it's this perceived effort, isn't it? Somebody has taken the effort to do that. If they can be bothered to do that, that's a nice indicator that they're probably going to take what they could do for me seriously.
yeah,
So I am going to investigate what that is. And if it isn't, okay. But at least they've done a bit of homework. I don't feel as though that conversation's a waste of time. If
yeah,
you're sat back going, yeah, well, I'm damn clever because I can send out 20,000 of those using my AI scraper and a nice tool which will highlight your pains, whatever. Gone,
right.
gone, gone, gone. I know what you're doing. You don't actually care. I'm not even going to
Yeah.
read it. But at least you'll get the attention and probably then the opportunity because we're going to reward that effort put in.
I think that's exactly the game. I think that's it.
Yeah. We've got to make an effort.
Yeah.
No easy.
And if you
Damn it.
do,
All the people have been listening so far for like the easy hacks. Well, there aren't any.
yeah, no, it requires
Got to put
effort.
a bit of work in.
I would argue one thing though, going back to like, yes, like if I were to talk to any salesperson, I would say you have an opportunity right now to stand out by sharing content on LinkedIn. And that's the platform you should share it because that's where, assuming you're B2B and your audience lives there on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Sometimes they don't. But if they do, I think that's where you need to spend your time, like an effort posting content. But not 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 everybody's going to do it. So I think the second best thing that can happen is that the brand themselves or somebody within the brand, with a evangelist hat is doing that on behalf of the brand so that they become recognizable. So for example, going back to the sales loft example with Tom Boston, like I became more aware of Sales Loft because of Tom's videos and the content that he was putting out there. But I didn't see any content from any Sales Loft like AEs or SDRs during that span. But if I were in a position as a CRO of a company and my team brought to me two products, they brought me Outreach and they brought me Sales Loft, and said, we need to pick one of these. Personally, I would have had much more of an affinity to Sales Loft because of what Tom was doing to help promote the company through his content. It reminds me of a conversation I had yesterday with a somebody in the SaaS space that sells a solution, and they're struggling with, and they're going through a rebrand right now. And the reason is because they feel like their prospects, their customers are viewing their their product to be just the same as the other 10 products that are in the same space. It's a super saturated space. And so they're going through this rebrand to figure out the messaging and figure out what their unique differentiators are so that they can talk about their product in a way that separates it from these other products that are out there. And my head instantly went to, I mean, sure, that's a great exercise. You know, you want to make sure you've got some good positioning and some good messaging around your products. But my head went to what we've been talking about. Like, had had this company focused on creating content, whether or not it doesn't matter necessarily who it's coming from, but content that creates this brand affinity that that gets exposed to the the potential buyers out there of this particular product segment, they would be in a great position when it came time for when that company was actually ready to purchase this type of solution. Because timing, you know, we all know that, you know, it's not everybody's ready to purchase something right now, but when they are, it's kind of like the example I just gave with the being the CRO, and I've got Sales Loft and Outreach in front of me, and I got to choose. So I'm a huge believer that that's an amazing opportunity that we have right now to help ourselves individually stand out, and then at a brand level, help them help the
Well,
brand stand out
it,
as well.
it's interesting, isn't it? Because it is going to be the same. And they will argue till they're blue in the face about some feature that's different. And it's like, no, no,
Yeah,
you're missing the way the brain works.
yeah,
We need to file stuff for speed. And so, oh, that's a CRM, right? It goes in the CRM file. Oh, no, it's not really a CRM. No, it's a CRM, mate. My brain's told me it's a CRM. It's a CRM. And you can stop talking now because I don't need a CRM. Got one.
yeah,
When there's a person, oh, it's a person, face, mouth, eyes. They're talking. They're saying stuff. It could be education. It could be funny. It could be funny education. It could be something. Right. I can relate to that person. Why? Because again, my brain is designed to do that. It has been for millennia,
yep,
you know? And that's why, again, for a long, long time, sports stars, actors, whatever, have been used to endorse products. Well, that's coffee, that's toothpaste, that's soap, whatever. Well, that's so and so's. It's how our brains work, isn't it? And so why would we expect that not to be the same when we're going into B2B world?
yeah,
Let's go with it. Let's go with the neuroscience. Just makes sense.
yeah. That's spot on. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
We just, but like you say, it's sometimes hard for people to get past themselves to sort of head above the parapet and do some stuff which can be perceived a bit risky. But I think the
I
reward's
get
there.
that.
The reward has to be there. Well, again, the guys we've been talking about, they have forged different careers for doing it.
No
And then
doubt.
there's other people I could mention again who I know have produced this sort of stuff, and opportunities have come as a result.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. No doubt about it. Have you seen the stuff that the videos that ClickUp has been putting out?
not seen those yet, or not registering consciously for me. So
Okay. It's worth like just going to their LinkedIn, ClickUp's LinkedIn page and looking at some of the videos that they're putting out there. It's it speaks to me. So they sell a product that does all sorts of project management, and it does a ton of different things. And for different segments within a company, they've got solutions for HR and for IT and for sales. And so they've started creating these entertaining videos that speak directly to, for example, HR leaders. So they've got a series. They've actually brought in like talent into the organization that are the the face of these videos that have like acting backgrounds even, and they'll get up there and do karaoke, like a HR karaoke session, singing songs that you know, but changing the words so that they're relatable to HR organizations. And it was just, it's stupid funny. I mean, it's silly, but you can't look away. It's like, oh, this is really, really funny stuff. Like if I'm an HR professional, or I'm somebody who's like, oh, I'm so sick of HR, because it's relatable to that too. Like it, it's perfect. It's so, so good. And they keep doubling down on this and putting more stuff out there. And I contend that they're doing the right thing. They're creating this brand affinity. They don't talk anything about the product, like what it does. It's all about like, hey, let's put ourselves out there in front of people. And when it comes time for us to pick between Monday.com and ClickUp, like, well, like we have a rallying like support like group from the organization that already love ClickUp because they watch their videos. Like, and all of a sudden, like that's the differentiator because
Yeah.
that,
We know them, and what an interesting time now though, because it's not quite as, well, maybe it is, as black and white as this, but we've kind of got well, let's do more AI stuff. We can crank out tons and tons of stuff, very low cost, virtually free, pretty good. Or we're going to invest a little bit more and having humans doing human things that
yeah,
humans can respond to. No, I think the humans are going to respond to the human stuff, perhaps
I think so
more,
too.
the more the AI stuff is cranking out, even however good it's getting, because the human just gets that. The stuff that shouldn't be funny but is, or just can, no, I'm going to take it to that level, which is get very close to the bone. But I can because that's my human
Yeah.
choice. There's going to be some interesting stuff going on. So you pointed us towards, we've pointed towards Tom, we've pointed towards Will, we've pointed towards ClickUp. We need to point towards you, Jeff. We need to point back towards you on LinkedIn, don't we? Because, I mean, we've been talking about it. It would be really funny now if you said, yeah, and what you do is you follow me on X.
Yeah, right.
That's
Oh, I'm on
that's where I do all
Facebook.
my best work.
Facebook, it's big time.
TikTok. um, so that's the best place to find you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
LinkedIn for sure. Yeah, that's
on
where I'm living.
LinkedIn.
I do have some goals to branch out into some other platforms this year, but yeah, right now LinkedIn is my sole base.
Okie dokie. We will put a link to your profile here into the show notes so people can find you. If they come, they've heard this and thought, oh, that's interesting. I want to kind of explore stuff a little bit more. If they mention it, it'll be a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sounds great.
A- any other parting shots? Anything else you just want to shout out before we close down?
No, no, I don't think so. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about this stuff. I'm passionate about it and believe it really is a difference maker in today's go to market.
I think it is. I think it absolutely is. So I encourage people to have a look at what you're doing, follow, and yeah, learn from that.
Love it. Love it. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the Collaborative Selling Scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.